And away we go. It's the DFS Alert presented by Awesemo.com, brought to you in part by SuperDraft. More on them in just a moment. Dan Strafford and Eric McPherson. Wait, who's that? Your old pal EMac. That's right. Here with you on this Wednesday morning, getting ready. He goes by a pseudonym. There's posters in certain lobbies of postal offices around the country.
Hey,
EMac,
I'm a top 10. I'm in the top 10.
a top 10 most wanted. Got it. I didn't know what you were going for there, even though I set up the damn joke. But here we are on the DFS Early bringing you I believe, 9-game National Basketball Association slate. Remind you, of course, you can use the promo code EARLYBIRD. That gets you 50% off a Osmo Premium Plus weekly package of any sports. Check out Osmo.com for more information. We also do have a giveaway and promo going on at Osmo_com on Twitter for leaving a comment on this here podcast on iTunes, on Stitcher, wherever you might listen to it. Leave a rating. There's sort of an open-endedness to the rating. Obviously, you're leaving 5 stars. I mean, obviously that is the case. Not stipulated, but SJM pointing out you left 3 stars over on iTunes. Not that I read the comments. But love you, bud.
Busted.
Nonetheless, we dive in here on a 9-game slate. I wanted to do a quick rundown of injuries. Obviously, they matter. Karl Anthony Towns remains out. Ben Simmons remains out. Bam Adebayo had a cut under his eye, had some stitches. He's questionable/probable. Jimmy Butler, personal, should be back from last I heard. He's 8,200, so that's an interesting price point against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Take that into consideration here. LaMarcus Aldridge is out for this game, last I saw. Wall clearly still out. Devonta Graham was active Tuesday night, last I saw, but then did not play. I haven't checked his minutes to see if he got into that train wreck of a contest for the Hornets at all. Kelly Oubre is out at small forward, power forward for the Phoenix Suns. Capella's still out. Jonathan Isaac, obviously out for the year. Jaren Jackson Jr. is out for the Memphis Grizzlies. He'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks. Brandon Clark also out. Do we get a Josh Jackson day here? Davis Bertans is probable for Washington. I think that's the majority. Jalen Brunson remains out. Hunter for Atlanta is probable for Wednesday, getting into the 4K range here on DK. Dedmon probable. Eric Gordon is considered questionable for Wednesday's game for the Rockets. Justice Winslow remains out. Tyler Harrow is out. And then we got Ntilikina, Willie Cauley-Stein, questionable. So just to point out, clearly plenty of injuries to worry about here on Wednesday. Thus is the NBA late February into March, into April, into the rest of the season. So we're going to be dealing with this EMac pretty regularly as it goes. Is there one or more of these injuries that you think, looking at this slate, at first glance, first look, as we call it on the graphic here for the DFS Early if you're watching on YouTube, that stands out most of all to you, one you're most concerned about, or on the other side of it, gives you the most upside for potential fill-ins or value plays because of the injury?
I think Ben Simmons being out makes some interesting pivots here because Philly's playing Cleveland. And I don't know, maybe we do see someone else get a potential day of rest. It seemed like Tobias Harris was going to be out for their last game, and he went from doubtful to questionable to starting and playing, I forget what it was, like 34 minutes or whatever, and it was Atlanta got a little frisky there, but Philadelphia ultimately prevailed. So for me, it's more just kind of curious if there's anybody else out that's really going to open up Philly. If everybody plays, then now we have mop-up duty towards the end of that game, which should really help. Now, we do have a line on the Philly game, so I don't think anybody's sitting out at the moment, but again, that could change at any time, but they're favored by 7.5 in Cleveland.
One of those moments in your life where you know you have to sneeze, and it's coming soon. And
Okay.
I'm trying my best, and I'm making the warning to everyone out there. I'll try to mute my microphone. I'll try to make it work for everybody, but it's happening soon, and it's going to be bad. I think Simmons makes a lot of sense as the answer to that question. Clearly, Towns has been out for a while now. Butler, I think, is intriguing here against Minnesota if he happens to sit out It would seem he's coming back. I haven't seen any reasoning behind the personal reasons, nor do I care. I like that's none of my business, but it obviously does impact whether or not he's back. So like what that personal reason is, why he's been out for these past couple of games. I know he also had some injuries ahead of time. So he's been out, 4 of the last 7 or 5 of the last 7 games for the Miami Heat. And to point out, Tobias Harris, to your point, played 35 minutes against the Atlanta Hawks. There is nothing better than doubtful, probable to 35 minutes.
I think that might have led the team or was second, if I remember reading that box score.
He was third, so it was Richardson at 38, Joel Embiid at 36, and put up the 49 points.
I thought he might have been 1 minute ahead of Embiid. It was 1 minute behind.
It's right there with Embiid. They were on the floor a ton together as well. So let's dive in. We're going to point guard on through center. I will remind everyone who's listening, and for those listening for the first time, this is our first look for EMac and myself. We're taking a sort of a parade through each position, seeing what information we have in front of us, Vegas lines, projections. We will have ownership projections over there on Awesemo.com. That's available to Awesemo Premium Plus members, so you want to sign up for that. And I will bring you a SuperDraft read momentarily to bring you up to speed on. Is that your promo for
No,
SuperDraft?
that's Loffy's, but I like it. I think it's funny. I know I don't sound nearly as funny as he and John, or I don't think I do, but I'd like to. That's my goal, but I have not. I need to watch that on playback when I do that to determine.
Yeah, you need to do what I remember listening to Artie Lang talking about doing voices on SNL or not on SNL, on Mad TV.
Yeah, the guy who does the Family Guy, same thing.
He would just listen to things over and over and over again to the point of almost delirium. So just listen to Josh and Laffy. That'll go really well for you. Like, especially listen to the chip challenge, that episode. Just listen to them doing that NBA strategy show, because Josh makes noises that are not human based.
Laffy's face does not look human after he does it either.
I said to him, I was like, your eyes bugged out more than I've ever seen in my life. Like, we've been doing shows together for 7 years, and I've never seen your eyes open that wide. And he did it out of choice, too. Point guard, we start there. Yes. James Harden, clearly 11-3. We know Memphis is up in pace on the year. Harden is a viable piece in any lineup. Trae Young is 10-4. Doncic 10-3. Westbrook 10-1. Then we have Simmons out, Russell, and we get down to Butler, who maybe we'll save for shooting guard if he's in. Dinwiddie, Booker, Mitchell, and down the road. This feels like very easy math when it comes to Harden. If you can fit him and you're building multiple lineups, he makes a ton of sense at 11-3. This isn't an astronomical price point. We know what his ceiling is. We are getting more and more comfortable with his floor over the past 2 weeks or so, 3 weeks. There was a little bit of a lull for a while, but he's taking double-digit threes, EMac. He's getting to the free throw line. He's taking shots in the 20s. He's getting just enough rebounds, enough assists to make him a worthwhile play. But do you feel like point guard gives you more elsewhere, where maybe Harden is a secondary play where you can get to him, you feel comfortable and you go? Or is he somebody you focus on this slate?
I think there's going to be enough moving parts that I don't really want to focus on him right off the bat. But all it takes is Westbrook to say, my thumb actually does hurt more than I thought, or I banged it again. I'm just going to sit out until we next play on, when do they next play? Saturday. So they have Thursday and Friday off, if I'm reading this correctly. Yep, I am. So it's one of those where that could all of a sudden make Harden one of the best plays on the slate. In the meantime, don't hate either one. We'll allow projections to get me there. But guys, I would have an active interest in. The list is kind of short, which as you dive into it, and again, we got a lot of moving parts, a lot of different things going on. But if we say, okay, Luka Doncic, sure, absolutely, and I actually would prefer him to Harden. Take the $1,000 discount on DK and the $1,700 discount on FanDuel. No problem whatsoever there. He's actually $1 more expensive on Yahoo because, hey, algorithms. And the one thing I do want to point out is no LaMarcus Aldridge. But this is in San Antonio. So you've got a bunch of little moving parts there. We don't actually have a line on that one. But, I mentioned in the article when I wrote up Luka Doncic in his last game as my favorite play, I said, hey, look, he's in a game against Minnesota. The other team may not catch up. He leads the league with 12 triple-doubles. 8 of them have come in 35 or less minutes. Two of them, both happened to be against Golden State, came in 30 and 26 minutes. So kind of like him, it's like he's like Jokic as well. They could get a triple double. It's not going to be a 30-point triple double, but they could get enough there in 20 minutes to all 26 minutes. All of a sudden, they have 40 fantasy points. You want more than that, but they're not going to exactly completely destroy you if there is a blowout. They will have had a hand in it, but it just may not have been enough scoring. But I like Luka probably number one. Number two, I'm going to say is Trey. Now Trey Young. So the interesting thing with him, not the best matchup against Orlando, despite losing Jonathan Isaac and a few other key members of their team. I want to see where they stand. They are currently in the middle of the pack, allowing 113 points per 100 possessions. So that shades a little bit towards the worst half of the league, but that's still not, the 117, et cetera, that happens with Portland and with the Hawks and the Timberwolves. So they're not quite there, and they play a little bit slower. So their actual points given up per games are going to be less than those guys.
Right. Slow-paced team. Yep.
Correct. So, but then on the other side, you got Trey Young. He's going to probably take 10 3-pointers in this game. If he hits 6, all of a sudden you're going to get a great game out of him. So that's the upside you get with him. If he's not hitting his shot, it's going to be a little bit disappointing just because of the cost and the fact that there's probably not a lot of hustle and helper stats and all of that, because they're going to be about 10 possessions less than there were in some of his other matchups. So those are the two guys on the top end. Boston's on a back-to-back. I don't know if Kemba's going to play or not, but kind of eyeballing Donovan Mitchell there at 7,600 on DK, 73 on FanDuel, 29 on Yahoo. That's not horrible by any stretch. And then moving on down, I would have to say DeJounte Murray, kind of interesting at 59 on DK, 58 on FanDuel, and 22. Sure, I'm on the right line. 22 there on Yahoo. He's been playing more minutes, and he has been very, very effective. You never know when things are going to change with the Spurs guards, because basically he and Derek White and then Bryn Forbes and Patty Mills kind of back each other up. Pop is not afraid to go with the hot hand, somebody playing well, the better defensive matchup, et cetera, based upon the opponent. But it seems like DeJounte Murray's been getting definitely things tilted his way. So that's someone I would be interested in at that price point.
I dig that. I will point out a couple of names that caught my eye, and then we can move on. I will say Spencer Dinwiddie, even at 8K against Washington, is enough for me to at least consider him further. And I don't really know what to make of Ish Smith for the other side here for the Washington Wizards. I know that is in your neck of the woods, and I know that you
can't watch them anymore. Now I know how you feel with the Knicks.
It's just that bad.
I can't, and I didn't mind, and I was okay with Bradley Beal and everybody at the beginning of the season when they were just amazing offensively. I can't watch them anymore. It's painful, and which I'm sad, because Beal had back-to-back 50 NBA point games.
Yep.
But they break your heart. They either look like garbage, or like last night they come back out of nowhere and then still lose. Yep. It's just it hurts, and yep. I go through that enough with the Mariners, and
so we do have. What's your take on Shake Milton or whatever point guard du jour is happening there in Philly? Put up 25.75 DK points against the Hawks. He gets the Cleveland Cavaliers here. 4,500 still feels like a price that we can be speculative enough on that there's upside, right?
I'm actually okay with him. I don't hate Furkan Korkmaz. We'll get to that. Just this is sort of the secondary plays that come in with Philly, that if you're thinking, hey, somebody gets some serious, playing 10 minutes in the fourth quarter on top of their normal rotation, all of a sudden that's what's going to get those guys into the mid-20s, or maybe even flirt with 28 minutes or so where they normally wouldn't in a regular game. That's where you're trying to map this out, and this would be the matchup where that would happen. So I don't hate Shake Milton. He would probably be number one for me. I'm just say no to Halzino Neto. Just not worth it ever. And then because the problem is you still have, so I like Korkmaz, I like Alec Burks, so those would be the three guys. I have no faith in Neto, and I don't really like Glenn Robinson III. So even if Glenn Robinson III starts, there's no guarantee he's playing much of a back end rotation,
right?
Unless there's a blowout. But I think they could go with those other guards first, who the hell knows who Cleveland's going to be putting on the court between their 9 million bigs and resting people and deciding not to play Andre Drummond after trading for him, which is wild. By the
yeah,
way.
they've been reports out that his minutes will continue to be limited or monitored.
Are they just
in some way,
keeping him fresh for next year? I mean, being serious. I mean, I guess protect your asset or something, but
I don't know. I don't know if it's he doesn't want to be here, we made a mistake, or what it is, but I haven't seen a real delineation on reasoning there for the Cavs or for Drummond. He played 23 minutes, 23:38 last time out. You saw them finish in the fourth and in overtime with Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson, Larry Nance, Kevin Porter Jr., and Darius Garland. That was their closing five.
Yeah, it's like Tristan Thompson couldn't get on the floor.
Think about that lineup, EMac.
Yeah, Tristan Thompson couldn't get on the court, Dan, until they got Andre Drummond. How in the world does that make sense for anybody?
Yeah, playing 29 minutes. And there is a world where big lineups may become more and more of a fad as so many teams go small.
Right.
The NBA is becoming more and more similar to the NFL, where it's a copycat league where one team finds something that works and the other team does it. And then another team says, well, we're going to do the exact opposite and play against you. But I don't know what's happening there in Cleveland. We'll get to center obviously later, but lots to question.
Drummond has made 5 3-pointers this year. 4 of them have been in his 5 games with Cleveland.
There you go. He's expanding his game. He's expanding. You see,
if Robin Lopez can do it, he can do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, if Captain Caveman can do it, anyone can. James Harden is our most expensive shooting guard. Already covered off on him. Obviously, the upside is there. We know the ceiling is there. That I'm not breaking news. I'm not breaking down any sort of astute analysis there, other than the price point doesn't seem too prohibitive to getting to him if you so choose. I think we'll have some value here across different positions that allow you to do just that. And as EMac pointed out, if Westbrook happens to be out, he becomes that much more viable. Bradley Beal is 9,700. He has Brooklyn. You have Jimmy Butler with that Q tag, Dinwiddie. We get Booker, Mitchell, a lot of the guys we've already talked about. Tim Hardaway Jr. Is 6,800. Clearly, with Brunson out, you have a couple of more minutes to scatter around there for the Dallas Mavericks. Kendrick Nunn, if Butler is out, springs to mind, though his price point has jumped up to 6,100. And then the Orlando Magic. You have them matching up against Atlanta, a guy like Evan Fournier's price point.
It's the guy I'm looking at right now, Dan, trying to figure out what we can say about him.
Of course it is, because Fournier always feels like, and this is the way I've played DFS, and probably wrongly for so long, feels like the cash game option here. Like, Fournier has enough of a floor against the Atlanta Hawks team that struggles on defense, struggles against the three, struggles with guards rebounding, like all of the things that we can rattle off, where Fournier feels like a lock to score 32 points. 32 DraftKings points, I should point out. 32 to 38 DraftKings points, which would give you, 6x, 5.5x, whatever it might be. Does Evan Fournier have GPP upside? I don't think so. Like, I don't think he's a guy where I'm trying to figure out how to get him into my tournament lineups. I feel like I feel secure in 30 to 38 DraftKings points, and I'll leave it at that. Do you see it differently or what?
No, and so since he missed the game for injury, in his last 16 games, he has not played less than 29 and a half minutes.
Right.
In 3 of those games, he had 28 points. These are NBA points. 28 points, 38 fantasy points. 26 points, 35 fantasy points. 30 points, just 40 fantasy points. And 26 points and only 40 fantasy points.
He just scored.
Yeah, he's just down to scoring.
And that's fine, and you know what you're getting from him. And I think it's 6K flat on DK. I don't have his FanDuel price up in front of me.
58.
And so as one of 2 shooting guards on FanDuel, again, I'd be fine there in cash games. I think if you're building a GPP lineup where you have other high upside guys and you want his stability in your lineup, fine. I don't think you're taking down a tournament necessarily playing Evan Fournier against the Atlanta Hawks, but I think he's worthwhile to at least consider. I want your take, though, on Josh Richardson. He's 5,200, has the matchup with Cleveland. Obviously, we had Joel Embiid night the other night, and I don't know if you saw his post-game interview, which is absolutely brilliant. He was being interviewed, and I don't know what the question was, but basically he said, at some point in the game, you just have to say, fuck it. I'm sorry. Like, he held up the towel over his head because he was so embarrassed that he said it on on a TV interview, and we
That's
put the
funny. I did
explicit
not see
tag here
that.
on this podcast. But it was awesome to see, and I am a huge Joel Embiid fan because of who he is and how he plays the game. But you have Josh Richardson at 5,200. He
I
has
think
the
he's a
upside.
staple of our. He's not. Right now, he's a placeholder core value. He's gonna be at least for, and when I say core, meaning I would be, if I was making 3 lineups, he would be in at least 2, if not all 3 of them tonight. Things could change, but I
Yep.
like him better than the the other 3 guys that I mentioned. I like on Philly. He's started the last 4 games. The fewest he played was in a blowout against Milwaukee where they got destroyed. He only played 27 minutes, but he played 39 in the last one. He played 39 in the one before the Philly game, and then 31 the first time he came back into the starting lineup after having missed 6 games and then playing 2 off the bench. So the minutes are going to be there. He does get some assists. He does get some rebounds, and he can work his way into about 1.5 combined blocks and steals a game. So there's enough there to make him interesting, and the minutes can help him get to a solid value off his $5,000 price tag. All of a sudden we're saying, yeah, he's probably in that same 30 to 38 range that Evan Fournier is, but he's a grand cheaper. Makes him that much better of a deal.
And I
Than
think
that.
Josh Richardson has genuine explosive upside is probably
Yes.
wrong, but Josh Richardson is a legit 30 to 40 point threat when he gets going. I have not seen that upside from Evan Fournier, and I think that the skill set
not
Josh
since
Richardson,
Elfrid Payton was setting him
that's
up.
fair, exactly. And we can talk about the Knicks at any point during this podcast. Also bang my head against the wall at some point, but I think that Richardson makes a ton of sense here. You have upside. You have the ability with Ben Simmons out. Now you can talk about Tobias Harris. Especially if Harris sits, or if we have one of these 76ers sit this game out, whether it's Embiid or Harris or even a Horford to an extent, a Horford less so. If you get that, I think you get so much more here. Any other shooting guards that you want to mention? It is a first look. Don't want to belabor per se, but I know we didn't necessarily dive in at
Dylan
the top
Brooks
end.
is an interesting price point at 47 on DK, 41 on FanDuel. I'm okay with that. Malik Monk was a disaster
Yes,
along
sir,
with
he was.
Devontae Graham in that first game on Tuesday night. Let's see. They have finished that one. Monk played 27 minutes, took 13 shots, had 8 points, 3 assists, and a rebound. Terry Rozier also took 13 shots. He made 2 of them. He had 5 points, 3 rebounds, and 7 assists.
They were down like
26 minutes.
35 at some point, right? Or they finished at, what was the final score in that?
It ended up being 80 to 119, but they scored 11 points in the third quarter.
Jeez.
They scored 19 in the second quarter. At half, it was, no, I was told there'd be no math. 44 for them and 71 for the Pacers.
That's nuts.
Yeah, down 30 at half, ended up the game down 39. Yikes.
Amazing.
But Malik Monk, minutes, shot attempts. Those other guys look just tired, in my opinion. And Devontae Graham went from, he was going to be able to come off the bench, but I think right before the game they said, yeah, he's just not going to play tonight.
Yep. So we probably get Devontae Graham back here. I would assume.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean,
Okay.
he's kind of old. I mean, he just turned 25 earlier this week, or maybe it was the weekend. But
did you know Shams Charania is 25?
Get out of here!
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. The kids. I can call him a kid now.
I would have thought early 30, like 32.
Exactly. He
34.
started writing for a Chicago blog basically when he was 17 and just kept breaking low-level transaction news, and Woj took him under his wing at Yahoo, and he's now one of the top 2 news. It blew my mind. Also made me very depressed, but that's a different story for a different day. Let's talk small forward. We don't need to have a therapy session here any more than we normally do.
Let's use Malik Beasley to swing on over to small forward.
That's a transition.
Yeah, there you go. So look at that. His 6 starts, reverse chronological order field goal attempts: 20, 13, 18, 25, 12, 19. I still like putting him in there for 18 to 20. And he's someone that, even though this is a tougher matchup against Miami. Who else is going to be taking shots for that team?
Is he's shooting guard eligible on FanDuel or small
He
forward?
is. I guess he's shooting guard. He's small forward shooting guard. Oh, they've changed it.
DK has been changing a lot of position
He
players
was
the
small forward. I
past 2 weeks.
swear
Yep.
the last game I played
Yep.
him
Yep. Exactly. And
against
they've been doing it
Denver,
a
I
lot.
think.
Yep. Yeah, he was. So keep an eye on that stuff. If you're thinking, oh, I can play this guy here, they've been
Yeah.
moving a lot of pieces around, giving a lot more single eligibility so far over the past couple of weeks. Speaking of, Kawhi Leonard is just small forward eligible on DK, as is Paul George. Explain that to me. Two players on the same team.
One of them was shooting guard at
Yep.
one
Paul
point.
George was shooting guard, small forward for a while, and Kawhi was small forward, power forward for a while. But here, Kawhi is 9'8". Beal is shooting guard, small forward. We have Tatum at 8,800 against Utah. Don't have a ton of interest there, even with injuries to that lineup. Paul George, though, is 8K, put up, I think, 7 points in his first game back from that hamstring issue. Karis LeVert, we didn't talk about him at point guard, but he's had a very solid season. He continues to sort of stockpile all categories when it comes to his stat line, maybe not picking up blocks as regularly as you might want to see somebody really filling the stat sheet. But do you like LeVert at 7,500? And where else do you see yourself going at the top in a small forward?
So LeVert decent at you know what? Actually, he's good. I wanted to get to his game log. So basically, he's what 8? His last 8 games, basically 7 of them, he's been around 40 fantasy points or better, meaning like upper 30s to 40s, or a little bit higher. He's going against the Wizards. The Wizards are horrible, and the Wizards play fast. I like that. So he's point guard, small forward on DK. I really like him at shooting guard on FanDuel. So let's give him 3 position eligibility here. But he's 6,500. Very nice price over there. And the way I download everybody's prices, put them in some VLOOKUPs, and get them all on the same page. But I just sort by DK, so I can sometimes miss players. I missed him on the first 2 positions, but he would be someone I'm interested in. Not really for Kevin Huerter. Jay Crowder, I don't mind on FanDuel, 5,100, 59 on DK. You're kind of hoping he gets a faster paced game. They keep him in, getting him acclimated with being with the team and some of the other players, etc., and keeping him near 28 minutes. He's not going to, most likely wouldn't get the rest. If this game gets out of hand, I would expect it would be Jimmy Revenge Butler that gets that, but we'll see. Joe Ingles has been incredibly disappointing lately, but you know who has not? Garrett Temple.
Do you, EMac.
Garrett Temple revenge game.
I will.
One of the 9 teams he's played for, 8 teams he's played for.
What is he like?
I think he played for the Wizards for like 4 seasons.
Yeah, you're right. In like 1997.
Yeah, something along those lines. In all seriousness, placeholder value in the low 400s, something, or 4,000. Something else will come along for him. But if you're going to game stack, he's going to be the kind of guy you want to in there, because the Wizards will ultimately end up going small, and he'll be out there because they'll have plenty of people for him to guard, and or he'll be spelling LeVert and Dinwiddie. So.
Yep. LeVert with Kyrie on the floor, 1.06 DraftKings points per minute with Kyrie off is at 1.17. Not gigantic jump, but the usage goes up from 27.7 to I think 30.7 for LeVert. There's enough going on here at this price point of 7,500 that I don't think it's a lock and load play. If he was sub 7K, I'd feel a lot more comfortable with that phrase, but I like him a lot in this matchup. Pace, obviously, as you said, EMac just really, really seems to be on his side. What is Washington still? Are they still top?
Their last 15 games, they've improved. They're 113 per 100 possessions, which is 4 behind the Trailblazers. But from a pace perspective, they're third right? With 104. So
yeah, they're behind the Houston Rockets and the Bucks, right?
Yeah. They love to give up 130 in regulation. So
right. And so I think this makes a ton of sense for any pieces of the Nets that you want to get. Dinwiddie, LeVert, you mentioned Temple, fine. And then we can talk about some of the front court guys here. It seems like, well, we'll get the center in a little bit, but it seems like DeAndre Jordan's getting a lot more minutes from Kenny Atkinson over the past couple of weeks, saying he hasn't lost confidence in Jared Allen. but clearly something is happening there.
So
That
the Wizards allow 120 points per game. Now this includes overtimes and all of
yep,
that. So that's the worst. Next worst is Atlanta at 119, the Pels at 117, the T-Wolves at 116.8, the Trailblazers at 115. I hadn't realized that. 114, so 3.5 points behind the Wizards, 114 points per game allowed. The San Antonio Spurs,
yep,
as well as the Memphis Grizzlies. My, how things have changed over the
yep.
last 2 seasons.
And I think really I talked about it early in the year. I think people took a long time to realize those two teams were not the same. Like they were not the teams we thought they were, and they were different entities and different playing styles. And especially with Popovich still in San Antonio, I think people kept expecting things to really clamp down there, and they got better, but not markedly so as the year went on. Let's talk some power forwards. I always like playing some John Collins. I just think he is a guy who, with Trae Young, with the pick and roll they've been running, has been very, very solid over the past 5 games or so. We've seen a dip in his production, really seeing it uh, from the boards. Games where he's not rebounding nearly as well, depending on blowouts or whatever it might be. But you saw it against Cleveland. Miami matchup, obviously tough with their front court and the way they play defense was a bit of a struggle. Had a big, big performance against Dallas, but 8,700, a little bit pricey. So Collins would be somebody who probably a second tier, even third tier play for me. Aaron Gordon, 7,800 stands out a little bit. Kevin Love against Philadelphia, 7,300. And then you get into likes of a Bobkov or Jake Crowder is 5,900 for the Miami Heat. Not sure how much Jimmy Butler and his minutes really influence what Jake Crowder will do here, but probably a little bit at least. What do you got at power forward, EMac?
Julius Randle,
Sure.
84 on DK, 76 on FanDuel, and 35 on Yahoo. He did manage to play, what is it here, 28 minutes against Houston. In Houston, their entire starting unit basically did not play the last 6.5 minutes of the game. So he probably lost a little bit there, but otherwise he was hanging in there and doing what he needed to do, even though they were going small and fast. His general offense, a lot of it he's a mobile big man. He's truly more of a power forward, but his game is within the paint. And if they're going to make him a featured option, the fear that Adam and Laffy and Josh all pointed out was that if the Knicks are going for 2 and Houston's going for 3, it's going to be a problem. If the Knicks are going for 2 and Charlotte is on the court, it's not a problem. So I think this is an entirely different matchup. So even though it's slower, the Charlotte Bigs have been horrible. They've been mediocre or worse for the majority of the season from a rebounding perspective, and they can't defend the paint worth a damn. So I think Julius Randle, this is a nice spot for him. Would I rather have him going against Atlanta or Cleveland or some team that's playing a little faster? Yes, but this team doesn't play defense.
No,
So
I
totally
love
fine
it.
with me.
I think at 8,400 and DK and the price point you said over on FanDuel,
76, yeah.
7,600, as you pointed out. Charlotte on the year, 23rd overall in opponent rebound rate, and they're 24th overall in opponent points in the paint. So 2 stats, they're in the bottom 10 in each that really lend to what Julius Randle will do here. Seems like a double-double is well in the offing, if not with some stocks and some assists thrown in there as well. You could see a pretty relevant high upside game here from Mr. Randle for the Knicks. What else do you see at power forward? Maybe a name or two more before you move on to center.
Gordon Hayward is familiar with the shooting backdrop there in, what is it, the Delta Center, whatever they call Salt Palace. I'm joking, but he used to play there. That's neither here nor there, but he is 7,400. Kind of a meh there. We get Jay Crowder popping up. Oh, Josh Jackson.
Yep,
this is going to be fun. Josh Jackson, 4,500 on DK, 35 on FanDuel, 10 on Yahoo.
And he's power forward on FanDuel?
Small forward still.
Small forward, okay.
But power forward on Yahoo.
Okay.
And combo on DK. He was interesting. He's been down with the G League most of the year. They've got him back up. It's not like they're on. I mean, Memphis is probably going to slip out of the 8th spot for the playoffs. Someone is going to reel them back in. But what they've done is been it's been solid. You can't get mad at him for that in what should have been just a complete rebuilding year. But John Morant kind of looks like he might have hit the rookie wall, even having had the All-Star break recently. You've got and carrying the team. That's a heavy load. They've got some injuries that have really set them back somewhat, and some guys are playing heavier minutes, so they decided to bring Jackson up here. Now we know he's the king of crap ball, like we saw him with Phoenix, but he can score, and if people are running around like they will against Houston, he can score. And this seems like a game that Houston could get out to a reasonable controlling lead and put in a bunch of the new guys that they've got and just get them working together, etc., which would be perfect for Josh Jackson, because all those new guys, they're not going to be working on the defense. They're going to be working on how they fit within the offense and the perimeter passing and all that fun stuff with Houston. So that means the garbage time could be accentuated there.
I will point out that
Oh no,
the
did my
injuries.
VLOOKUP not work?
No, 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 no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no, no. I'm just going to point out the injury news we talked about
Oh,
before with Jaren Jackson Jr. and Brandon Clark both out. That as painful as Josh Jackson Day can be, these price points make him somebody you're going to have to make a choice on.
could he
Like,
play 32 minutes and get 15 fantasy points? Yes,
yeah.
he could.
Could he
On
also
15 shots.
could he also play 15 minutes and get 32 fantasy points?
Yes.
Also a possible outcome for Josh Jackson on this slate. So I will say, I think you're going to see, if you use an optimizer, you're going to see him pop up a lot. Like, it's just going to be that sort of game where, from a projection standpoint, you're going to see a lot of him, and you have to make that choice on how you're approaching him and the rest of your lineup construction. If you find value elsewhere, maybe he's a guy to fade. We have ownership projections at Awesemo.com, and that may influence greatly how you see and how you play him here, because if he is a 20 plus point, 20%, 20 plus percent owned player, I'll get there eventually. It's that feels a little sticky to me and feels a little bit like where I might stay away. But if he's in the low teens, maybe you make a decision that he's worthwhile enough at a cheap price point with enough upside against the Houston Rockets. Let's close it out with some center talk and be done. Embiid clearly against Cleveland makes a ton of sense. Those price points up to 10-5. Vucevic gets Atlanta. Sign me the hell up. Like, this is the matchup that we've exploited so many times over. We know that they don't rebound no matter who is there. Like, they swapped out their entire front court. Dwayne Dedmon has been a little bit hampered since coming in there. He should play in this one. But Vucevic, 9,500 is an advanced price point for him. Abso-freaking-lutely. I get it. But this seems like an absolute crush spot for a guy who has been having a very, very solid February. Do you see it differently? Do you see a cheaper option here that you like more? What do you got at center?
I don't mind Rudy Gobert for a bit of a bounce back. He just has not been taking shots. He has still been getting to the line a ton in his last 3 games. 8 free throw attempts, 5 field goal attempts, 9 free throw attempts, 7 field goal attempts, 7 free throw attempts, 8 field goal attempts. He just does not have a game that goes outside the paint, which is a bit of a problem, but we could see some. He will be needed more in the paint against Boston than he will have been in some of the recent games, because they have enough of a front court that he'll be there. You know what reminds me? Enes Kanter. They've designed this road trip for him, back to back, former spots. He's in Portland tonight, and then he gets on Wednesday he gets Utah. Good times ahead there. I think that it's going to be news that we need. DeAndre Ayton at 8,100 on DraftKings. That looks great. He is 86 on FanDuel, not quite as good. 36 on Yahoo, sort of splitting the difference proportionally there. I do like the matchup for him against the Clippers, because it's either going to be Montrezl Harrell or it's going to be Ivica Zubac against him. And I think he has the advantage against both those guys, either via size or via he's more quick than Zubac. Is the whole Clippers team good, and am I not really excited to play guys like Ricky Rubio and Devin Booker? You betcha. I'm okay with going to DeAndre Ayton in
Anybody from the Wizards front court? I know you've stopped watching them, but between Wagner and Bryant and
If I did any of them, it would probably be Wagner. But I'd really think that Hachimura or Berton's kind of, well, Hachimura eats more into the time Wagner could get. You really need like Jan Himni or Hachimura to be injured for Wagner to get more than like 17 minutes. He's put down some monster games. The problem is, I haven't looked up his foul rate, recently, but it was higher than 30 than 6 per 36 when I was looking at it earlier this year.
all right. Any other pieces here at center before we want to close it out?
No, I think we're good. I think news could pop and change things. I think you could, maybe you talk yourself into paying a little bit more for Kristaps Porzingis in this game, just because a lot of value could arrive for you. Maybe the Bam Adebayo injury doesn't seem quite as. What did you say? He got popped in the face or something?
He has some sort of scratch under his eye, had a stitch or two under his eye.
So perhaps the Q tag scares some people away. Popularity's not there. You can consider him. We're paying Apex pricing, but then when you factor in where the popularity is, that might be some place to go. I think you're right. I think Vooch is probably number 1. Ayton is probably number 2. Randall, where he is center eligible, which looks like DK only, and then probably Gobert. And this is just the faith play because he's not shooting enough. But he had a interview the other day. I got some soundbite where he was acknowledging he needs to at least take more shots, even if it's in the paint or whatever, just because they need scoring from a variety of places. And that him doing that or even forcing it from, I'm paraphrasing here, but basically the gist was if he's kind of even taking not the perfect shot from 12 feet in, that might be better than somebody taking a longer shot. Because then he's close by for the rebound for his own shot, as opposed to a long distance shot that may skip off the other side of the basket, etc., or be a longer carom the other way. I'm reading into that myself, but that to me kind of seemed like, okay, I could see that making sense. Unless you're Dennis Rodman and you know everything about rebounds, there is some variance when it comes to rebounds. But
I will say I'm going to call that from now on the EMac extrapolation principle of offensive player quotes because you just pulled all sorts. I hope you don't do that with your wife. What I really think she was trying to say was,
I summarize it with yes, dear. Yes, dear.
And don't forget SuperDraft, which you may also know as SuperDraft.io, the future of daily fantasy sports. Experience SuperDraft's exclusive game mode multiplier. Say goodbye to salary restrictions and hello to lineup freedom. Use your fantasy sports knowledge and Osmo's free SuperDraft projections today to draft any player you want and build your very own dream team. Countless lineup possibilities let you experience daily fantasy sports the way you want. SuperDraft offers, contests for NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, and PGA, so you can enjoy the best of DFS all year round. Sign up for SuperDraft today using promo code AWESOMO and claim your free $20 in Super Cash with your first deposit of $100 or more. Download in the App Store or play at superdraft.io. SuperDraft, no limits, more winning. Don't forget, use that promo code EARLYBIRD. Gets you 50% off 1 week of Osmo Premium Plus. Any sport, check out Osmo.com for more information there. If you care to find our old pal on Twitter, at EMacDFS, right?
That is correct.
At Dan Strafford for myself. EMac, the question everybody waits for on this podcast, the one everyone bated breath back there at home, 10K and above, Westbrook, Doncic, Trae Young, Joel Embiid, James Harden. If you had to build your DFS lineup, and no, none of them are named Fred VanVleet, but if you had to build your lineup around one of those players on this slate, Westbrook, Doncic, Trae Young, Joel Embiid, James Harden, who would you most likely to be
Luka
building?
Doncic, number 1. Quite easy for me.
All right, there you have it. So don't forget, find Osmo_com on Twitter as well. Tons of giveaways. We do have the current rate, comment, leave your username over there on iTunes for this podcast. Again, it doesn't say specifically to use a specific star rating, but we all know this is a 5-star podcast. That's the only way we do it here at Osmo.com.
SJM, the only thing that's 3-star is vodka.
Nice. Well played. You've been thinking about that one.
No,
You've been only
I just
all
thought of
right.
it.
I thought you might have been like once you heard it before, you're like, I'm gonna pull this back up at some point. Tomorrow morning again, Adam and myself right here on the DFS Other Bird presented by Awesemo.com.